Welcome back to Show and Teller. It's always a pleasure to see you guys, and I'm so happy you get to tune in again to another wonderful episode, Show and Teller. And as I always start off an episode, our goal here on Show and Teller is to bring in interesting people, fantastic individuals who have overcome challenges in their life, who have a story, who are pushing the limits, who are doing things to really contribute to our community. And it's my job, our job, to find these people. And I personally don't know our guest so well today, but when I heard that he has a story and it would be very intriguing to our audience, I said, you know what, let's bring him on to Show and Teller. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest today, Mr. Ariel Berkowitz. Ariel, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on the show.
I really appreciate it very much, and I'm very excited. Yeah. And we were talking earlier today and saying, Rabbi, what's the theme, or how do we go about doing this? And I just said, just be yourself, just tell us who you are, show your authenticity, and the rest will shine. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I am as well too. Just very great honor to be here and share my story and my journey, my survival and my recovery.
Amazing.
Where I'm at today.
Fantastic. So without further ado, let's start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Ariel. Where are you from? Tell us how old you are, and give us the early stages of your life.
Yeah, I'm from Dallas, Texas. I was born there, raised there.
Cowboys fan?
Not a Cowboys fan.
Okay.
So, but I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan.
Okay.
I had a really good childhood in Dallas growing up. My family, we were Orthodox actually for almost 5 years. I went to Jewish school up until third grade. I met a lot of rabbis who I became very close with. We did Shabbat, we kept kosher, went to shul every single week. I had a lot of friends and played sports. And then
Do you have siblings?
I do. So I have two younger sisters. I'm the oldest, and I'm 28 years old today.
Today?
Or sitting here today, I'm 28 and like a half.
It's
not my birthday.
Happy birthday, okay.
February, we'll have to wait a little bit.
Okay.
So just had a really, really great childhood, amazing parents, amazing family. Towards the end of third grade, I guess there were some challenges in the family, and we kind of started to pull back from all of the religious areas of our life. Fourth grade, I found myself kind of in the McDonald's drive-thru, Taco Bell, eating all these non-kosher places all of a sudden. And as a 10-year-old, you kind of are a little confused at first, but then, it just becomes normal after some time.
So at first, was there any guilt saying like, okay, I know I'm supposed to eat kosher food or keep Shabbat, and now it's like, oh my gosh, I'm sitting in a McDonald's, Taco Bell drive-thru, and were you mature enough or understood what was going on?
I will say no, because just, it was just food to me at the time. Even though I wore a kippah before and went to shul and all that, I didn't understand the deeper meaning of all of it. I didn't understand why exactly we were keeping the Torah. I was just very young, and also, before the age of 5, we were not really religious, so we were eating those foods anyways. Okay. So it was kind of just okay, we're back here after a few years of being Orthodox. It wasn't really so much my first time ever. And so that just kind of became normal. Fourth and fifth grade, I went to a more modern Jewish school, which was great as well. And then sixth grade, I found myself in public school, completely different kids from all different backgrounds, everyone learning side by side. I was trying to find my way within the large crowds. I managed to make a few friends at first, some of which were also Jewish, so I felt like I kind of connected with them. And I had a locker now, walking around the school. I had no more uniforms. A class schedule.
Felt free.
It was just
as a sixth grader.
It felt a little. You had a little bit of freedom. I was able to walk to the school because instead of whatever. When you go to a private school, you can kind of just enroll there, even if you live very far. With the public school, you're in the district. You're most of the time in the neighborhood. So it was just close to my home, and I was just found myself kind of walking all around the town, and started to skateboard a little bit. And 7th grade, I started to play football. I was always into football and basketball, mainly football.
What position were you?
I was a wide receiver on the football team, and then they also wanted me to play safety on defense.
This was tackle?
This was tackle, in public school.
Nice Jewish kid playing tackle sports. I'm sure your mother was thrilled.
Yeah, so I was a very good wide receiver, but they just didn't have enough players on defense, so they would have put me at safety. And then 8th grade, I scored 1 touchdown on offense, and then the coach just kept me on offense the whole season. And then I started to advance my skill set slowly. And then the coaches started to really recognize me as one of the better players on the team. At this point, 8th grade, I felt very comfortable in my surroundings in public school. I was very well known throughout the school at this point. Had many friends, like a few really, really close friends. And so it was great. I was really enjoying my time in public school for the most part. I don't really remember too much of the academic side of things. I would say probably I wasn't giving my best effort, but I was getting by like with B's and C's. And so, yeah, I was always organized. I was always a very creative kid. I didn't really like apply myself going into high school so much. But like I said, so, I did have a lot of friends, but going into 9th grade, a lot of kids started to change, and friend circles sort of started to split up or evolve into something else.
You went to a different high school?
I went into the high school in the same district, but there were a few middle schools in the area that like fed into that high school. And so there were just new people there, and there was, I would say the number one contributing factor to a lot of kids changing, including myself, which I'll speak about in a moment, was really the exposure to partying and underage drinking and weed and drugs and just, all that kind of stuff. And so public school and high school, that's just really what it is, to be honest, especially in North Texas, where I'm from. And, I started to get involved in this
scene.
Yeah, by the age of 14, 15, football was still there. I was still very good. But I knew that if I was going to take this seriously and get to the next level, whether that's whatever the varsity team, even you were able to make the varsity team while you were a sophomore, but you had to go to these training programs in the summer so those varsity coaches could get to know you. But I never went to those. Like every single day after school, instead of training and working out, whatever, I was basically just going with my friends just to find a person we can go buy weed or drugs from. We were trying to find a party every single weekend. Kids were just leaving their friends in the dust just at the next time that they can go get high or drunk or go be with a girl or whatever it was. And so that's just kind of what my life was in 9th and 10th grade. And I stayed back on the sophomore team in 10th grade, and most of my friends that weren't doing those things got bumped up to varsity, even though I actually was better than them in my skill.
Were the coaches aware that you think that they were able to see that you were dabbling with these extracurricular activities and saw, okay, not a punishment, but just this is a cause and effect, the fact that you're engaging in these other extracurricular activities, they said, okay, you're not fit to be on the varsity team?
Not necessarily, just because that stuff kind of stayed away from locker room for the most part, I would say. And the varsity coaches just didn't even know me. Like I never even just went to the training camps or anything like that. If I would have just gone and whatever, just ran a few routes, and then I probably would have made it. But I didn't even try to go. Summer to me was just like a joke, like just complete break from school, partying, not even caring about anything in the world. And
did your parents at this point see the writing on the wall, or were they getting concerned?
Not so much. My parents were kind of dealing with their own things. They were like slowly kind of in the process of getting divorced, but my dad would occasionally find a pipe or whatever, or just catch me smoking or something like that, and he would get very upset. But it's not. And then he would just kind of cool down and go do his own thing. We would still do family things together, but they weren't really viewing it from like an athletics side of it. They just always thought that I was really good, and they never really thought that it was going to get to the point where I was off the fields completely, which by the end of high school I wasn't even playing football anymore. I had a girlfriend, and then I was basically just hanging out with her and smoking weed every single day. I finished high school with like many friends lost, average grades at best, no more girlfriend even, just like no direction, no purpose in life for the most part. But I will say, even though keeping Shabbat was a distant memory, even though I was eating non-kosher every single day, there wasn't a point in my life where I was just like, okay, God doesn't exist. I always believed that there was a God who ran the world. I just never thought about him, and I never really, searched for it so much. In high school,
there was no reason to at this stage.
Yeah, I was just dabbling in whatever I was doing, and then that's kind of really it. And I saw kids doing drugs.
So you wouldn't wake up in the morning and say, God, thank you for me being alive. Thank you for
God. No, not at all. No, there were times I remember saying Shema before I went to bed, but I don't remember the motivation of why that I ever did that. Like, it was just kind of programmed into me. I don't really remember why. Senior year, I started going to these parties and I see kids doing drugs that I thought I would only see on TV, like just cocaine, psychedelics, all these things. Like, and it really took me aback. I was really taken aback by that. I'm like, how's this happening? It was just kind of crazy. Even some of the kids that were on the varsity teams were starting to, get involved in this, and it was really sad. I started just kind of spending a lot of time alone at that point. I was still a pretty happy kid. I had like a couple close friends, but I didn't really want to be so involved with like the large crowds anymore. I wanted high school to just end and then figure it out after that. I didn't really have a plan in place of any sorts to go to college. I was working in a family business a little bit at first. That would have been that first semester. And then I decided that I was going to get some college credits at the local community college. I sign up. I'm still smoking weed every single day pretty much. And I eventually just stopped going to the classes. I didn't even go to the advisor to tell them I wanted to drop out of it. I just completely, no show, which is probably the worst thing you can do for your transcript if you know about college a little bit. And, time just kind of went on. I started working in my grandmother's skincare business. And then at the time, a lot of my friends were moving down to Austin, Texas. The University of Texas was over there. They have
Longhorns.
Longhorns, and a lot of college kids, big party town. And I was like, wow, that looks amazing. Like, let me go try that out. I had never really lived outside of my parents' house. And so this was really my first time living on my own. I went there, had a valet job lined up for myself. I was going to sign up for Austin Community College classes and then eventually hope to transfer to UT. And really, after a few weeks of being in Austin, everything I had envisioned about it kind of went down the drain. The valet job that I had lined up, didn't work out. I had not even signed up for classes yet, and the semester was starting. I was basically just buying drugs and food deliveries every single day, wasting a lot of money, and I knew that it wasn't sustainable.
I want to say, nicely, but you were becoming a degenerate.
Right, yeah. I mean, I didn't really think about anybody but myself at that point. I just was indulging in physical pleasures 24/7.
And you're how old at this point?
I was 19.
19.
Yeah, so this is coming up right before I had my accident. And I was able to recognize that, okay, this isn't working out. Like, I need to go back to Dallas. I'm going to run out of money very soon if this continues. So I had a close childhood friend of mine who was also Jewish, kind of similar to me, a big partier and all that. Comes down and to Austin. He moves all of my furniture by himself, brings the whole U-Haul truck, and he did everything by himself. We're driving back to Dallas, and he mentions this concert in downtown Dallas that was going to take place a few days after we got back. And I think it was electronic music or something like that. And as much as I was involved in this type of life, I wasn't really into going to concerts and clubs and all those types of places. But and to be honest, I did not want to go to this place at all. But I thought about it in my head. Wow, look, he's really helping me. He came all the way down to Austin, moved all of my furniture, all of my belongings by himself. And I just kind of kept thinking about it. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go. I'm going to go with him. So a few days later, after I had moved into my father's place, at this point, my parents were already living in their separate places. He comes over with his friend who was like a reckless drinker on a whole other level. And we were consuming different things before the concert. We started driving to the concert, and
when you say you're taking alcohol, you're doing other...
Yeah, like just weed, for the most part, just weed and alcohol. Okay. Yeah, but a lot of alcohol. Of course, underage, or we weren't 21, we were 19, 18. And by the time I got to the concert, the night really started to become a blur for me, meaning that my awareness started to fade away into the surroundings. And I remember kind of jumping up and down with the rest of the people, the zombies all around me. I had always heard stories of people losing their phones and personal belongings at these places. So I brought this special satchel bag to hang around my neck, and I kept my phone safe in there. But about 10 minutes after being at the concert, I was like, wow, this is so amazing. I feel so good right now. I want everyone who I know to see this. So I pull my phone out, I start filming around me to put it on my social media, and then my worst nightmare came true. My phone completely disappeared.
From your hand?
Yeah, I don't even really remember how So I start kind of scrambling around me, scrapping around, trying to find it. It must have just fallen or something. There were so many people jumping around. And I couldn't find it, and I became very agitated. And at that point, I remember standing there saying it to myself, I was like, I'm leaving. I don't want to be here anymore. And I was not in the right state of mind whatsoever. I completely separated from my friend and his friend. I just left the venue completely. And
by yourself?
By myself, just walked out of the venue.
Like a big am I singing like a big stadium or a big concert?
So this was like an indoor concert at this club in downtown Dallas.
Okay.
And it wasn't long before I found myself standing in the middle of downtown Dallas. It's late, it's dark at night.
Midnight.
Yeah, it was around midnight, maybe a little bit past. Not really anybody out anymore. Most of the people were inside the concert or just whatever in their homes.
No phone.
No phone. Yeah.
Maybe you have your wallet on you, but and feeling a little bit high. Not a little bit high. But
yeah.
You're very.
No,
high.
I was on just a whole other level of just not in the right state of mind whatsoever, and just in the diminished state of mind that I was in, I just started kind of walking throughout downtown Dallas, trying to figure out what to do. I wanted to make my way home somehow. I wanted to wake up in the morning, forget that this night ever happened. I was a little bit over my phone at that point. I was like, okay, whatever. It's just a phone. Just wake up fresh, start a new day, and then take it from there. And now I just needed to get home. And so at first,
Did you know how to get home?
So it was a 45-minute drive from my father's place to downtown Dallas. And I wanted to kind of find someone to get a ride home, but then I was just in the altered state of mind that I was in. I made the crazy decision to just walk from downtown Dallas to my father's place, which if anybody from Dallas knows, it's from there to North Dallas is probably going to take you a day or two. It was completely unrealistic. It was not, I just wanted to start going in that direction. I didn't know what or how
This is before Ubers or Waymo or anything like that. It
was before it was it was popular. Okay. Yeah. And for sure as teenagers, we never really got into those types of vehicles. And so in Dallas, there's this light rail train system. It's called the DART train, and it runs across many areas in downtown Dallas, especially it runs in many areas in Dallas, runs throughout many areas in Dallas, but especially in downtown Dallas. And the tracks are sort of entrenched in the ground, running across many sidewalks and streets, and so it's not so easy to see all the time. And I come across the train tracks at one point, and I'm not really thinking too much about it. I'm kind of stumbling on the ground at this point. I remember kind of cold, hard, gray cement, just stumbling, and I'm thinking I'm going to get across, but what happened next would changed my life forever. And Hashem had other plans for me. And so basically I just fell down and stumbled, hit my head very hard, and I was now lying on the train tracks.
Passed out.
Passed out, yeah, unconscious on the train tracks. And the train started to roll through shortly after that. The train conductor, of course, recognized the severity of the situation that was unfolding right before his eyes.
Meaning he's honking, he sees you there, probably at a distance.
It was dark though, so it was not so far away. He saw me when he was getting closer, and then he tried to stop, but it was to no avail, and the train actually just completely ran me over. My
You're lying
body.
on the train track.
Yes, yeah, but it's a miracle. There are many miracles that were taking place that night by the Master of the Universe. One, that my body was thrashed to the side in such a way where only my legs were affected by the impact, as they were, amputated right there and then by the train, basically. It apparently dragged me for 90 feet as well. And so, my body was out there, of course, bleeding out. And the emergency personnel, they were able to make it out in time from Baylor University Medical Center across the street, which is another miracle that the hospital was so close. Attaching all this machinery to my body in an effort to keep me alive. And and then there's another aspect to that miracle that I'm going to speak about here in a moment. And so, yeah.
So Ariel, you were not conscious when the actual impact happened.
There was no pain, no memory of the impact whatsoever. It was just me stumbling in downtown Dallas, concrete. That's all I remember.
And then you wake up and you're like, what the heck just happened?
So yeah. So what really happened was, many people have heard of clinical death before. It's kind of when there's a stoppage or a cessation of vital bodily functions. Your heart stops pumping oxygenated blood. You stop breathing and all that. But from a spiritual standpoint, people have spoken about different experiences that they've had during the clinical death. And there's still a lot out there that we don't know about it. They say, okay, if you're clinically dead for 5 minutes, that could cause permanent brain damage, cognitive skills, and all of those things. But people have been out for much longer than that, and they've been fine. Some people have come back and they're like a vegetable completely. Some people have just gone into real death from there. But from a spiritual standpoint, people have spoken about seeing lights or tunnels. They've said that maybe they've had deep, intense feelings of love and tranquility, separation from the body. And some people have even spoken about seeing deceased relatives, all these crazy things. And so, I can't say that I had any of those experiences myself. But going from stumbling around the concrete, the train tracks, literally the next thing I remember after that is drifting above my body in a dimly lit hospital room. And it was still me. Everything about it was still me. I was just existing there. All my thoughts, my personality, everything I loved, hated, everything that I've said, everything that I've seen, it all just fused together into this piece of existence that was me, just above my body. And I'm just there. And I felt stuck. And I didn't know what was happening. I was teetering between life and death.
Meaning you as this elevated soul was watching down on your body, and when what you're describing right now, you're seeing this. You're speaking as the elevated, or you see, or you're speaking as your body seeing this.
So this is me outside of my body, completely outside of my body, and I call it an existence because that's just how it felt, like you're existing outside your body. Like I said, it's still me. But, I wanted to desperately go into my body and wake up. I saw people in the hospital room. I saw them doing certain things. I knew where they were standing exactly in the room relative to where my body was at. It's hard for me to kind of speak about this, but deep in my existence, I guess I'll just call it your neshama, because I think that's what it really was.
Neshama means soul.
We say, okay, soul, existence. In my soul, I had this deep feeling, it was a terrible feeling of shame, disappointment, lack of achievement, and ultimate failure. I had basically no accomplishments in my life at that point. I had completed nothing, basically left nothing behind. And this was it. Like, I'm dead. there's nothing I can do.
Was your soul, your neshama as you describe it, this is your soul was acknowledging this, or was it was revealed to your neshama or your soul that it hadn't achieved the things that you as the soul wanted to achieve?
So it wasn't something that I was like watching or looking at it. More of it was just a feeling that encapsulated my whole entire soul. Of everything that I had done in this world was part of my soul, and there was nothing really worthy or important that was a part of that. Like, it was just ignorance, smoking all the time, chasing girls, partying, nothing really important in the grand scheme of life. And I didn't have any accolades. It was just this, I felt like a puny, tiny, useless piece of the grand scheme of life. And that, whatever was going to make a decision about me and where I was going to go or what was going to happen next was just a bazillion times greater. And that feeling of being stuck was the worst, because you're there cluelessly waiting for something that you have no idea about, and you desperately want to go back inside of your body or stay close to it even. And I knew that whatever was happening was not my decision. It wasn't up to me. And so I just felt like I was just in the hands of something so much greater and bigger than me. But that feeling completely encapsulated my soul, and it just felt like I was there kind of, if I had to describe it in physical terms, like you're waiting at the doctor's office in a waiting room. You're waiting cluelessly. You don't know when they're going to come back, and there's very serious health results that need to be communicated to you, but you have no idea what exactly is happening. And I don't know how long it lasted. There wasn't really any aspect of time during this experience. I was just there. And I remember seeing my friend from the concert come into the room. At that point during the night, my family members were notified of the tragic news. I can only imagine how difficult it was for them. My friend and his friend were trying to find me at the concert, and eventually, like, my parents called them, and like there was just all this chaos going on, and they all rushed down to the hospital. My direct family members were very hesitant to come into the hospital room itself. They were just kind of close by in the hallway. My friend walks in, and he just looks at me, and I don't know what he was thinking. And I couldn't really hear anything. I was just able to see.
Again, you're seeing this from
yes,
your unconscious.
I was still,
you're still in this state.
And they didn't know, like, if I was dead. They didn't know if when I'm waking up, if I am. They knew my legs were gone at that point, so that was already terrible news for them. But now it's like, okay, his legs are gone. We're very sad about it. Is he
gonna have to do any emergency surgery on anything in that area?
So at that point, I had like these big sponges in the areas where my wounds were. I didn't have surgery yet, and I just had a bunch of huge thick blankets on top of me. I had tubes down my throat, all these machinery attached to my body.
From what point down can you show us where did it happen?
Oh, so yeah, I have an above knee amputation on my right leg and the below the knee amputation on my left leg. So they're uneven amputations. And so anyways, yeah, I observed my friend coming into the room. He comes here to the right side, and he just starts looking at me and then slowly starts weeping to himself. And then, I guess some more time passes, and my grandmother comes into the room, and they turn on the lights. She comes and sits down to the right side of my head, and she opens up a little book, starts reading from it, and it looked like she was kind of praying or something. And somehow, some way, I was able to figure out that this was the book of Tehillim, like the prayers that King David composed, which have extraordinary power beyond our comprehension. And I knew nothing about Tehillim. I knew nothing about King David or the Torah, really, or anything like that. I learned a little bit in Jewish school, but I don't. Up until that point, there's so much that had happened with public school and partying and everything.
So for our viewership who doesn't know what Tehillim is, it's Psalms written by King David, and when people are in a state of maybe sickness, or you're praying for good mazel or luck and you want good news, we in Judaism will pray from this book of Psalms called Tehillim, and we believe that it has, not that we're superstitious, but we believe that it has mazal, which is like a powerful force that will help yield potential good news.
Yeah, so I didn't know how I knew that it was Tehillim. It didn't make any sense to me. Like, I've never really picked up this book. Like I said, I didn't really know much about it at that point in my life. I thought about God here and there, but I didn't know about these books. And kind of just to fast forward many years later, when I became more religious in my Judaism and all that, I was listening to, I think it was a Torah talk from a rabbi who was saying that your neshama knows things that it wouldn't know otherwise when limited to the physicality of the body. And so I kind of like thought about that, and I made that connection for my clinical death experience. Maybe that's how I knew that it was Tehillim, but really who knows. But anyways, I observed her reading from it, and she eventually closes the book, stops reading, of course, and takes it, puts it under my hospital bed pillow. And really, the book didn't even make it under the pillow. What I felt in that moment has still never left me to this day. This feeling of just clicking. What I mean by that is the millisecond that Tehillim book touched my pillow, I clicked back into my body and woke up in the hospital. And the reason I use the word clicking is because that's just how it felt. And really, only way I can really describe it is you make a decision to go turn the light switch on, and if you were able to somehow balance the light switch between the on and off position, and it's kind of like teetering in between, and then clicking it to whichever side you're pushing it towards, that clicking sensation through your whole body is sort of what I felt. Kind of sounds
almost like your soul was making a decision, like, going forward, this moment onward, life makes sense, or there's a new revelation or a new awareness on how this point onward in time will be different.
It was, yes, but so that was probably taking place deep down within my soul, but it was more of just me uniting with my body again. And it was like such a fulfilling moment that it was a perfect fit, like a garment that you put on.
Like, you feel your soul wanted to reunite with its body.
Yes, yeah, like desperately. And you can also compare it to a garment that you might want to wear, and this garment is fitting so well, like tailor-made to the T, the best fitting garment you've ever worn, that's perfectly only made for you. No one else would be able to fit into this garment. And that just brought like this great sense of fulfillment to me, this swooshing click that just, boom, you're back in your body. And that's really the only way I could describe it. But I think it also testifies to the greatness of Tehillim and the Torah and, the holy books. It's like, just by simply being there, the Tehillim book itself, I guess tipped the scales in my favor. And I was given another chance at life, another opportunity. So,
I mean, you're saying some things right now, and I'm thinking, and I'm just trying to reconcile and just say, like, okay, what I'm gathering from this is that our soul and our body wants to be together because it has a purpose.
Right.
And I'm not saying that you had a choice at that moment. Whereas before the accident, before the incident, you weren't aware, you weren't in touch of this marriage that your soul and your body needed to exist, to be in this world. And it took a separation of your soul and your body. And again, I don't know what conscious state you're in, but you were aware enough to know that the Ariel that's watching this, there's a disconnect between what I need to do in order to survive or to live, and it was almost like you desperately wanted that life, that opportunity for your neshama to have another breath of life, and you needed your body in the state that it was in, but you needed your neshama, the essence of who you are, needed that completion again. And
Right.
it was almost like, okay, please give me that completion. Please give me that connection. So now, going forward, I could maybe appreciate life. Again,
you're 100% right. And that feeling of having your ignorance catch up to you at full force, culminating in you literally being on the precipice of complete death, it's terrifying. And you realize, wow, I have all this untapped potential, and I didn't even
And God gave me this gift right now in this not altered state that I've never been a part of ever. To give me this awareness, real unadulterated awareness, that I need life.
Yeah.
And what a gift.
Yes.
The click.
Yeah. The click, the fulfillment of just being united back with the body that you were meant to be in, to give you that opportunity to get to that point again, give you that chance to reach greatness that you're destined for. And so, I knew I had it in me. I just never reached for it. And when I woke up in the hospital, I was overtaken by a complete sense of disorientation, though, because of the machines that are all around me, just being in the hospital. And I didn't really know what had happened. I couldn't speak with anyone because I had those tubes down my throat. And since I couldn't speak, I started making motions with my hand, like I wanted to write something down. That was going to be how I wanted to communicate, of course, really the only way. And my family members were very happy that I woke up, but they didn't know what the condition of my brain was going to be like. Is he a vegetable? Is he the same Ariel? Like, what's going on here? So they gave me a piece of paper and pen. And before I say what I wrote down, just having that experience of being outside my body, like this is it, it's over, and having no accomplishments, the sense of failure, no legacy left behind, nothing, not even close to even reaching your potential or making way towards your purpose, that made my neshama, I guess, really recognize what the most important thing in life is. And I think my neshama pinpointed it towards having children and building a family, teaching them the right way of life, teaching them how to recognize God and live with God, and make the world a better place and better your surroundings in any way you can. And since I had not left anything behind, my neshama was like hungry for that when it was back in my body. And I don't really remember thinking about asking this question, but my neshama just pushed it out of me. My soul just pushed it out of me. First question I wrote down was, so I'll say that I had a very strong physical sensation in my lower body. I knew something had happened in that vicinity. It was almost like a blinking nerve feeling where you just have these like nerve signals that are being sent all around, but they're not making their way anywhere, and it's just very intense. And like I said, I didn't know if it was my legs or where. And the first question I wrote down was, do I still have my ability to have kids? First question. And for like a 19-year-old, it's kind of a normal thing to ask. And when they saw that, my family members, they knew that my brain was okay, and everyone was very happy, gave a huge sigh of relief. But of course now it's like, okay, we have to tell him he got hit by a train. I didn't even know. And they broke the news to me. And I'll say I didn't have any initial sadness whatsoever about it. Not at all, not even a smidge. In fact, I was very grateful and very happy to be alive. I start writing questions down like, am I going to get robot legs? How does this work? Am I going to be able to walk again? I started snowboarding a little bit towards the end of high school. We'd go on trips to Colorado and New Mexico, and it was kind of my replacement for football. So I even wrote down thoughts about going to the Paralympics one day, like minutes after I woke up and found out I got hit by a train, writing down these thoughts about going to the Paralympics, which is still an aspiration of mine. And it sounds crazy. You got hit by a train, you lost your legs, you were 19 years old, you have your whole life ahead of you. Why aren't you sad? You should even be depressed. Go live under a bridge, So, I could have easily chosen that option. And there are really many reasons I wasn't sad. And there are really three that stick out to me, and I'll mention all three of them. One, of course, I think we know anybody who's getting hit by a train is most likely not making it out alive. I had my life back. My back was unaffected. My head was okay. I even make a joke sometimes saying that the train might have knocked some sense into me. Like, I feel smarter than before. Have my arms and hands still. You craft things, build things with your arms and hands. You express yourself with your arms and hands. And then I can still have kids. So that was huge for me, to make it out of that crazy situation with all these body parts still.
We would say, Baruch Hashem.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Thank God.
It's weird to say thank God that you get to see the blessing, the bracha, right, where before you didn't see the bracha. You're lacking something, but you're also gaining so much more from this experience, which is a huge shift.
It is.
19
years old, and have to learn how to walk all over again. It just comes down to your life is worth more than just a couple of limbs. And with every single reason of why I wasn't sad, like when I was able to take those reasons, kind of build them up on top of each other, it almost made it impossible for me to be sad. It was very hard for me, even if I wanted to be sad, even if I tried to be sad, it was very difficult for me because of these things. And, so that really was the first reason why, like, just kind of more of the physical. I still have my arms and hands. Of course, I have my life, which is not so much physical all the time, but, and then second reason why I wasn't sad, I will say, is I just had so much support around me from family and friends. I saw their reaction to this whole situation. They were, of course, very sad, and in those moments I didn't want to make them feel any more sad than they already were. And I knew that my reaction to this accident was going to create this atmosphere of emotion that was going to permeate throughout every person that was involved, whether for good or bad. And as I mentioned earlier, it could have gone and lived under a bridge. There was really only two options: become depressed, go live under a bridge, give up, or rise above this, show everyone that you are going to make a recovery and make a comeback. So to me, there was no option. It was just that. Like, there was no chance I was going the other way. And I wanted to show everyone that I was going to get better from this and make a full recovery and walk again. And this is all taking place within the first few minutes of just me being awake and finding out about the train and everything. So I think it's a good lesson for any scenario in life. We tend to get very riled up quickly in a situation. Our emotions can overcome us when things don't go our way, and sometimes we're in a position of leadership, or people are looking at us to see how we react, and however we react is going to create that atmosphere of emotion, like it did for me in that hospital. That's going to spread around to everyone else, and that isn't just going to impact you, it's going to affect other people around you and affect how they think about the situation. And for me, one thing I was able to control throughout all of this was my perspective, which is really the only thing you can control in most situations. The way you look at things, what's your perspective on it? Am I going to be more focused on my legs and how I lost them in those moments waking up in the hospital, or am I going to be focused on, wow, I have another chance at life now. My soul is now with my body. I felt what it was like to not have that, and now I do have it. It's just, it makes it very complicated.
So you're living with a sense of gratitude and not scarcity anymore.
Yes, there's such a great sense of gratitude that it overtakes any other negative feeling that you might have. And I wanted to create that also for the people that were around me, which of course they were still in the midst of grieving about it, and in their sadness, and so I didn't want them to feel sad, and so really that was the second reason for me, having all that support around me, understanding how I was going to affect their perspective and emotions, in regards to it. And so, yeah, and then the third reason, which is really the most important to me, this kind of took it over the top completely, which really made it hard for me to be sad, was the fact that I now knew you don't just go into the ground after you die and then that's it. Of course, we have a body that your body expires and whatever happens, happens, but there's something that's sustaining your body, that's powering it, energizing it, and whatever happens after, it separates from the body, it goes on and does its thing after that. Wherever it goes, I don't know. But, in the Jewish religion, we believe that you have a soul and you die, your body expires, your soul moves on to wherever it needs to move on to. We believe in it. Like, that's what we learn in the Jewish religion. But when you have a personal experience with it, you're essentially thrusted into a whole new perspective on life, on humans, on relationships, on the universe. It had shifted my whole entire view of everything, just having that experience. And it's like God had just shown me that there was more to life than just this physical world. And now what? Now I'm going to be sad just because of the loss of a few limbs? Like, it just wasn't going to happen for me. It was not going to happen. And so really those are the three main reasons why I wasn't sad. And it doesn't mean it was perfect. Of course, I had times where I'm like there and, I'll first say I had to get surgery. They had to close up my wounds. I was now officially a double amputee at the age of 19. Most amputees, they stay in the hospital for months. After a week of being there, I didn't want to stay there. The nurses thought that I was out of my mind. But I was adamant about leaving. I wanted to, get out of there and start recovering from home. They put me through a series of tests to see if I was able to get from the wheelchair to the bathroom back to the bed or wherever. And I passed those tests with flying colors. Thank God, I have pretty solid upper body strength. I was able to propel myself to all these places from my wheelchair, and they discharged me from the hospital exactly a week after my accident. My father gave me his whole master bedroom. He tore apart his master bedroom, bathroom. He's Israeli, so it's like, Israelis know how to do the construction. It's just their thing. And so he was very just enthusiastic about getting that done. And I'm very grateful to him for allowing me to stay there, during those initial stages of my recovery. And I know I said I wasn't sad, but I was kind of sitting there in my wheelchair a couple weeks after, and just was like, wow, like this happened so fast. Like, what's going on? Like, I don't have legs now. I had to start going to physical therapy. It was just all new to me. And it wasn't so much sadness, but I did have thoughts that would sort of try to pierce in to my being, thoughts of perplexity and confusion, kind of. They were giving me a lot of medicine at that point as well, which kind of affected me. So I knew that God had made a big miracle for me, but throughout those initial stages of recovery, I still didn't really think about God that much. I knew about that this experience was pretty crazy, and a lot of things were happening those first couple weeks. People coming in and out, visiting me, giving me gifts, and just social media. There's so many things happening, and I didn't really think about this clinical death experience whatsoever. And so I'm just sitting there one time in my house, and all of a sudden
shortly after.
Yeah, just a couple of weeks after, and I just start having these memories flushing into my head of being above my body and having this feeling of disappointment, failure, lack of achievement, and seeing my friend and people coming in and out, and my grandmother with the Tehillim. And my grandmother's a very spiritual person, so she had kind of had the Tehillim with her, and she comes over, and we start having a conversation about it, and I tell her about my experience, and she wasn't really she was kind of surprised by it, but she wasn't, because she knew that all these spiritual concepts or whatever were true, and but she still has the Tehillim to this day, and most of those things that I saw in the hospital were confirmed by the people that were there, and really a lot of the information was given to me voluntarily before I even really told them about how I was above my body. But I'm sitting there in my wheelchair one day, and I had those feelings again of just failure, just no achievements in your life, and it was a little bit traumatizing to just kind of think about that again. But then I just thought about how much God had done for me by bringing me back and giving me the opportunity and getting me out of that hospital even. And that was kind of one of the first times I thought about God, but I wasn't really dwelling on it so much. Like I said, I've always believed in God. There was never a point in my life throughout high school, throughout all the craziness, that I was just like, I don't believe in God. Never have I believed that there was nothing. So, like I said, I start going to physical therapy. I hear about this thing called prosthetic legs. I have to learn how to walk all over again. But just kind of tracking back real quick before I move on to the next thing, some extra spice to the story, I guess you could say. I did have a lot of visitors in the hospital. Some rabbis in the community came in. Mark Cuban even actually, he knew about it. He donated to me, which I'm very grateful for that. But there was one visitor in the hospital that really was the most important to me. And I actually never met this guy face to face. I never even said a word to him. I don't even know who he is, what his name is, if he's Jewish, if he's Christian, if he's atheist. I don't know who this guy is. But he comes downstairs to the hospital lobby. Apparently he was like an officer that was working on the train that had hit me. He tracks down my mother and he says, hey, I need to come up to the hospital room and speak with Ariel right now. So they come up to the hospital room. This is, I would say, a couple hours after I woken up. It's like early in the morning. So I had woken up around 4:30 a.m. So it must have been pretty early. He comes in or they come into the hospital room and they say, hey, look, there's this officer that wants to come speak with you. And I thought I was in trouble. I didn't know what this was all about. I just said, no, like, do not let him come in here. Like, I didn't even really know what had happened. I just remember being at this concert and then boom, you wake up in the hospital. So I just was like, no, don't let him in here. And they went back downstairs. They told him, hey, look, he doesn't want you coming up. Knowing that he wouldn't be able to speak with me directly, he ended up speaking with my mother, who would eventually relay the message to me. But he desperately needed to get this off his chest. And he went ahead and said that, hey, look, I saw your son after he had gotten hit by the train. I started walking towards his body in the dark, and when I got very close to his body, I saw a light blue blanket of light that was surrounding his body, preventing him from bleeding out. And he went on to describe it as a light blue dome-shaped blanket of light. And so, sounds pretty crazy. They come upstairs, they tell me about it. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. But I just kind of pushed it to the back of my mind. I didn't really think about it too much. But I kept it there. And however you want to view this light blue light, however you want to look at it, interpret it, if you even want to believe in it, it's up to you. But I think one thing is certain, is that God did make a miracle for me. God said, hey, look, this is a good kid. He has a future. He has a good future. He's going to help a lot of people. He's going to build a family. He's going to do great things. We're going to give him another chance. So I was given that opportunity to come back, whether it took that light blue light, the Tehillim book, prayers, whatever it was. And I just think, it doesn't matter how much adversity you face, or if things don't seem like they're going well, all the odds are stacked against you. God can do anything. He can do anything. I think, so I was learning Torah, I came across a part in the Gemara, the Talmud. It says that if there's a sword hanging above your neck, even that you should not...
With the angel of death at your neck, you can still pray.
Right,
and reverse the decree that was put on you.
So exactly. So even if everything is going against you, you're about to, God forbid, have that situation come upon you, or whatever it is, like, God can change things in a snap of a finger. You'll be given that extra chance. So
that happened at 19. You're now 28, not today.
Yes, 28.
So 9 years has passed since your life-changing incident.
September 29th, 2016 was the day of the accident. So 9 years just passed.
It was all tough.
Yeah.
So now what's going on in your life now?
Yeah, so I do want to talk a little bit about the prosthetics part of it, and then kind of just bridge the gap between that and then where I'm at now, how I became closer to Judaism. So like I mentioned, I had to go back to physical therapy, or I had to go to physical therapy. Then I got my first set of prosthetics. May 2017, went back to physical therapy again with the prosthetics, had to learn how to walk again. I was in a walker, then 2 forearm crutches, then 1 forearm crutch. I eventually got strong enough to where I was able to walk unassisted completely. I decided that I was going to go back to college, but take it seriously this time. I took the same classes that I had dropped out of before, which is really good for your transcript. This time I got good grades. Before I knew it, I had enough credits to transfer to the University of North Texas at Dallas to pursue a degree, a bachelor's in biology. And I was doing very well at the university. My second semester there, COVID hit. We were taking all of our classes online. I was taking some very difficult science and math courses online. And spring of 2019, my friend, the friend who actually had come with me to the concert that night, his father passed away from an illness that he was fighting for a very long time. And his father was Moroccan. He was actually a very religious man. He was pretty much the only religious member of that family. The wife wasn't religious, the kids weren't. It was just the father. It was very interesting. And so, yeah, he passed away at in his 50s, pretty young age. And my friend was being comforted by Jewish people in the community during his mourning period. One of the rabbis was kind of like teaching him, helping him out a little bit. And it seemed like in the blink of an eye, my friend made a complete 180 in his life. He started to learn more Torah, started to keep Shabbat, keep kosher, all those things. And my friends and I were like looking at him like, what's going on with him? Like, what is he doing? And he would actually invite us to Shabbat dinner every now and again. And most of the time I would accept the invite. And, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being there with him on Shabbat. He started to become a nicer person a little bit. And I was very inspired actually at some point by the changes that he was making, but I wasn't ready to make a change in my life yet. Until he calls me up one day and he's like, hey, you want to hang out and read this book? So I say, okay, sure, let's hang out. Let's read this book. It sounds fun. I was always into reading books about history or science or whatever it was. He comes over, he walks in my apartment. I see him holding a peculiar looking yellow book. I found out pretty quickly that it was some type of Torah book. He now wore kippah all the time. And we start delving into the first few pages of Ma'am Loez, which is the Torah anthology that many people have it on their shelves. It's written by, I think, Rabbi Yaakov Cooley in the 1600s in Ladino, which is sort of the Yiddish of Spanish. But it was translated in recent times by, I think, Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan is his name. Yeah, I believe so. So it's like either a yellow book, sometimes it's like darker red.
Creamish.
Yeah, exactly. So we started reading from it, and I was really enjoying it. Like, I knew that whatever we were reading, I knew that it was the truth. And it was pretty advanced for me. I'd never really read just the right basic Torah, so we were just jumping into all these midrashim and all of these deep ideas about angels and the stars and all these crazy things, and I just really enjoyed it. I really liked it, and it brought like a sense of fulfillment to my soul. And I think that's what brought that great feeling. That's what brought me that great feeling of enjoyment from it, because my soul felt good knowing it and learning it. And we learned every single week, but he wasn't always available. And got to a point where I said to myself, wow, I really love this. I want to keep learning. So I'm just sitting there in my house one day, and I looked to the left on my bookshelf, and I didn't even realize I had a whole entire Tanakh sitting on my bookshelf that my grandmother had gifted me a few years prior.
The Tanakh is the entire Torah anthology, which is basically the 5 books of Moses, which is the Torah component. Then there's the Nun, which is the Tanakh, which is Nevi'im, which is basically the books of the prophets. And then there's Ketuvim, which is other books that took place thereafter.
Right. Yes. And it's a pretty big book, but I took it upon myself to read the whole entire thing from front to back. I had never even read the basic 5 books of Moses. I went to Jewish school, but I never, I remember some of the stories like Noah's Ark and the Exodus, Egypt, and all those things, but I never actually read it from beginning to end. And I was like, wow, like we're doing this Mam Loez book that's super deep. I need to read just the basics right here. So, I start reading from it every single day. And by the time I got to Sefer Vayikra, the third book of the Torah, Leviticus, I had a better idea of how God dealt with our forefathers. I now knew more about how God worked. I had my first taste of Yetzias Mitzrayim as an adult, which is the
leaving of Egypt.
Right. So I had my first taste of that as an adult, and most importantly, at that point, I acquired an awareness of God's presence in my everyday life. And with this newly acquired awareness of God's presence, I started to make connections between the Torah that I was learning and my experiences during my accident. I started to be even more grateful than I was before. And I knew that this was a great miracle that God had made for me, but now I really understood the magnitude of this miracle. And at that point, I wanted to, of course, keep learning. And I was also watching different Torah lectures online, which boosted my understanding of Torah overall. But I wanted to do something practical now and show God that I was grateful for this. Not just like say it or think about it. I wanted to do something practical. And so I started doing a casual Shabbat dinner with my mother. She would make some food. I would say the prayers and then just drive home. And that continued for many, many weeks. Until one week I told myself, look, I'm kind of tired of this. I want to add another little extra element here to my Shabbat observance. So I decided that I wasn't going to touch my phone that Shabbat. I viewed it like a science experiment completely, like what's going to happen if I don't go on my phone for one day. And realistically, who's going to call me? Is it going to be that important? And I will say by the end of that Shabbat, I had such a special, uplifting feeling within myself. I didn't even want to go on my phone anymore. I didn't even want my phone at all. I had tapped into some sort of realm of the greatness of Shabbat that I had never experienced before. I had tapped into just a small smidge of it. And I decided that I wasn't going to go on my phone from that point forward. But I was still doing everything else, driving, touching electricity. I was just going to do the dinners with my mother, drive home, but I wasn't touching my phone. And it made the day feel very special. And regardless of anything, I did feel like I was connecting with God every single day. And that continued for many weeks as well. But then it got to the point where I got tired of that also. And I called my friend up, who was already 2 years ahead of me. He was going to the synagogue every single day, multiple times a day, doing everything, like keeping the full Shabbat, all that. And I call him up and I say, hey, look, I just want to come to the place where you're going to pray. I want to do everything you're doing. Can you just teach me how to do it, please? So he brings me to the shul, the synagogue, and I put on tefillin for the first time since my bar mitzvah. And I started going with him pretty much every single day. It was taking place during the Jewish month of Elul, which is an auspicious time to do teshuvah. So
returning to God and getting closer to God.
Yes.
You do that right before Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
The New Year, the Jewish New Year.
Yeah, so that takes place it's a good time to do all that during the month of Elul, and just that whole element of the month sort of uplifted my experience of going to the synagogue, getting ready for the high holidays, and I'm standing there during the Yom Kippur services. We did it in a very nice hotel, and like this big ballroom, and I now had a very nice haircut. My hair was a little bit longer before. I had nice clothes. I never really wore button-downs or nice clothes before that. So I'm standing there now, just all tidied up, nice clothes, good haircut, and standing in front of God, praying on one of the holiest day of the year. And I just kind of zoned out in the middle of the prayers at one point, and I started looking all around me, started looking at all the people praying, and I had some thoughts like, what's happening right now? Who are you? What has happened to you? And it was really during that moment where I felt myself really transforming for the first time ever into something new, somebody new. And really not long after that, I got my first set of tefillin. I started going to shul 3 times a day. I got an opportunity to stay in the in the area next to the synagogue where you're allowed to walk on Shabbat, carrying stuff. So it's called the Eruv. And I started to just, come closer to Torah and try to come closer to it. It wasn't perfect, of course, but, I was making good progress. And really with anything, it's not really about perfection. It's about progress, about progression. So, it hasn't been perfect, hasn't been easy. And one thing that kind of also drove me to, or at least made me realize how serious this was my friend walks into my apartment one day and he says, "Hey, look, this is a picture of a girl from Israel." I'm like, "Okay, like, who is this?" And he's like, "Oh, I just got engaged to this girl." And I just thought about all the crazy things that we have done together, all these parties, all these concerts, whatever it was. And I'm like, wow, like he's really getting himself together now. Now he's getting engaged, he's getting married. And so in my head, I was like, okay, this is really serious now. Like, this isn't just him just having a Shabbat dinner and eating some food and singing and drinking wine. Like, this is legit. And I was already kind of learning at that point. I was in the middle of learning the Tanakh, but I like boosted my efforts at that point to try to learn more and make it to where he was. And so he got married. He takes all the Mam Loez books with him to Israel because he moved to Israel with his wife. And I was so happy for him. I was like celebrating, but I wanted to keep learning Mam Loez. I didn't even know where you buy Jewish books from. I was like, where do you get these books from? So I'm sitting there in my house a couple hours before Shabbat started, and I'm like, wait a second, we have the internet. So I looked them up online. I find the books. I look at the price. I was like, okay, I'm going to buy these books. Then I looked at the clock, and I was like, okay, I got to take a shower now and go to my grandmother's house, that's the place I was going to be staying for that Shabbat. She lives close to all the rabbis in Dallas. So I'm like, I'm going to circle back after Shabbat and then buy these books. So I go to my grandmother's house that night. We get back from dinner. I walk into the guest room where I'm staying. I look on the nightstand and I see 4 books on the nightstand. Same day. And I immediately identified them as the first 4 books of the Ma'am Loez series. And when I saw these books, I thought that I was hallucinating. I froze completely. I was just shocked and couldn't move at all. And my grandmother kind of walks behind me, and just when I thought it wasn't going to get any crazier, she says, "Oh, yeah, these books. By the way, there was this man that knocked on my door around 4 p.m. today, and he said, I have these books that I think your grandson Ariel will really enjoy. Why don't you give them to him?" And so when she told me that, I completely melted into my socks and shoes. It was just insane. And I didn't know what to think, but I knew that this was 1,000% God, and that God was giving me an opportunity to learn these books all to myself. And this guy who dropped them off, he's a member of the community in Dallas. I don't even know him at all. I've never said a word to him. I don't even know how he...
By the way, these are not the most popular books out there either. I mean,
right.
They're popular, but they're not that
Yeah,
popular.
they're not super common. Like,
yeah.
It's like, it's so random. Especially that it was like, okay, let me go give them to Ariel's grandma. Like, he was a little bit friendly with my grandmother here and there, but it wasn't like he was close to our family at all. Like, it made really no sense whatsoever. So yeah, like my story of coming closer to God has been filled with instances of these like, times where God reveals himself to me, and then other times where kind of God pulls back and I have to find it myself. In my initial stages of coming closer, God really helped me a lot. Like, I was on fire. I was doing everything. I was so enthusiastic about it, but then it kind of became
it's
a little...
like all relationships. You have to work at it. Right,
yeah. And it got to the point where I had to work at that. I had to learn more. I had to find it within myself to keep pushing forward. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I started to become closer. And
so now you're married?
Yes.
You're married how long now?
About 6.5 months.
To an amazing girl from Los Angeles, California.
She is from Los Angeles, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that's a whole other story in itself.
That'll have to be a part 2.
But
so that's incredible.
Yeah.
So you guys are married. You're keeping a Torah home with God,
yes.
And
yeah.
You have a job now?
Yeah, I do have a job. I'm a science teacher at Yavna. Actually, I started getting into science education a couple of years ago, my initial intention was to work in the prosthetics industry, but I got out of school and there wasn't really an opportunity for me. I didn't love the path, and I had to really think deeply within myself. Am I wanting to do prosthetics because this is actually what I want to do and I'm passionate about it, or is it just because I have prosthetics? So I didn't really answer the question yet to myself, because I'm not totally against trying it out one day, but my mentor and I kind of sat down, we talked about lifestyles and all that, and yeah, I just thought about it, and he was recommended trying out science education, and so far it's been really nice. And I teach
How old are these kids?
middle school kids. Yeah, not the easiest. You have to be very firm, with your
But I'm sure you see a little bit of yourself in there.
Yeah, I wasn't there that long ago, so I understand them.
That's good.
Yeah, I understand them.
So if you can leave our audience with kind of like your closing words, or a quote that you want to live by, or something inspirational, what would you tell our viewership?
There's a lot that I like to go to when it comes to that. The first thing I always say usually is just, everyone has greatness within them. The best way that you could tap into that is, especially when you're going through something difficult, especially when you're going through a struggle, because a lot of people have challenges. Pretty much almost everyone has challenges. Mine is visible. I walk into a room, people see me right away. They know what I'm dealing with. A lot of people have internal struggles, and so, if you could find greatness and gratitude in your struggle, that's how you're going to find the best version of yourself. Having the perspective like I did, and not letting your struggle tell you that your life is over. Never let your pain, struggle, anything that you went through, whether person, a situation, whatever it is, to make you feel like your life is over. There's more to your life than what broke you. There's more to your life than anything you're going through. How do I know? Because I've lived through it. God told me and showed me that there was a bigger plan for my life, even though I didn't understand the plan, even though I didn't see the plan. And so it's challenging in the world we live in today. A lot of people feel like they're not worthy. They're so focused on accomplishments, and they're not focused so much on the process. And of course, you want to do great things while you're here in this world, but you just can't allow other people to make you feel a certain way. When I was making my changes, I was trying so hard to not focus on what are my friends going to think about me if I start wearing tzitzis, these tassels that we wear, Jews wear. If I start telling them I can't go on my phone on Saturday, or I can't eat with you anymore at this place. And so you might have to walk alone for a little bit, for a period of time when you're making changes in your life. It could be religious changes, it could be social, it could be any type of change. But this is your life, it's not their life. And I always love to say this. A lot of the people who've heard me speak before have heard me say this many times. Just, I'd rather walk alone than walk with people who make me feel alone anyways. And if you could figure out a way to live internally and not live externally, your life will improve so much. And so you just don't need other people to believe in you during your journey. You just need God to believe in you and you to believe in you. And so for myself, I've always tried to internalize that, and it hasn't been perfect, but I'm able to get up every day and try my best. And, my greatness is not determined by what I accomplish. It's determined by my efforts and my attempts and how I try to do something. Sometimes all I have to do is try. Give things a chance, give people a chance. In this world as well, we see a lot of times where people aren't giving others a chance. They just cancel them out, or they cross them off the list before even getting to know them or getting to talk to them at all, which is kind of a little bit to do with my dating story. Of course, dating wasn't not so easy with my situation, but God had a plan for me, and I found an amazing woman here from LA, and always wanted to find another woman that was keeping the Torah, doing the things that I was doing, and it's just a huge blessing. So if you want, I could say one more amazing thing that I always love to say. It's very inspirational. It inspires me, and it keeps me going. I always ended off by just saying that, I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. I'd rather have no legs and the connection that I now have with God than to have legs with no connection to God and little to no purpose in life. That's kind of my saying.
Beautiful. Ariel Berkowitz, you have been an inspiration, and your courage, your ability to overcome adversity, your clarity that you have on life now is truly unbelievable. And you should take your strength, you should take your resilience and continue to share that with our community, because I know that what you've been able to overcome and how you're living your life is truly something to marvel, and we could all learn from it. So Ariel, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and we should all do this together another time.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Amazing.
It was great.
Thank you so much. All right. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I enjoyed this. It's a lot.